Hi, my name is Sarah Starr. I'm a private health coach, and thanks for joining my Monday Healthy Habits series. Every week I'm doing a 15-minute webinar with some tips on how to start creating habits of health and start to minimize or eliminate your habits of disease. Now, every one of these webinars has a worksheet that goes along with it, so feel free to pause it. The worksheet is linked in the description of the video. For this one, it's a 3-pager. And if you have this printed out either before or after, it's going to make this a lot more valuable for you. All right, today I am talking about some emotional intelligence basics. First of all is how to notice feelings and process them in a healthy way before they turn into emotions and then moods that might suck your energy away. And then we're talking about some specific feelings that can trigger addictive actions, how to notice them and how to change those responses. So let's go ahead and get going. I'm going to do a quick screen share and we'll get right to it. Okay, so starting out with understanding 3 different emotional states. First are our feelings. Everyone has them. You can't control them. They're unconscious. They bubble up from what's happening internally, externally. We have all kinds of feelings happening all the time. These are energetic states in our body. We might feel them in our stomach or in our head or suddenly like feel overwhelmed. It's a real true energy state. This are emotions. This is when we might notice a feeling and then we're like, whoa, I felt that way when I kissed that person. Whoa, maybe it's love. Maybe this is the one. You have this emotion and it's like, oh my goodness. And then there's moods. Moods can last for hours, for days. Moods are when we fully commit to the emotion. We put our attention into it. We put our energy into it. And we lose focus on everything else going around. So in the example I talked about before, if you've ever met someone who's newly in love, they are on cloud 9, they're not noticing what's happening. So that's an example of the feeling turning into an emotion, turning into a mood. Now, if we pour too much energy into these feelings, it can cause a ton of problems, even the good feelings. It can take our energy away from the things that might be actually important, our priorities, things that we might need to be doing to keep our day going. And certainly some of the more troubling feelings and emotions, like the ones that we might call negative, there's no bad feelings, but they can really sap your energy. So let's go through and talk about how we can process these emotions at the feelings stage. And the really cool thing about this is if we can catch the feeling early on and just process it, notice it, it really usually it doesn't take any longer than about 90 seconds for us to notice the feeling and process it and clear it out of our body. If we don't notice and process and clear it, and we're not really paying attention, that feeling can stay in there, the energy can stay, and it can turn into that emotion. And if we're still not paying attention to it, imagine the scenario of you're driving down the road and you're not paying attention and someone gives you the bird. And you immediately, when you see that gesture, you're like, oh, you feel offended. If you don't process that feeling of offense, maybe it turns into an emotion like, oh, that's not right. Like, why would he do that? I'm a good person and I was doing my best. Now you have this negative emotion that you're mindfully pouring energy into. And if you don't process it there either, maybe this turns into a mood. You show up at work and you're already in a bad mood and someone says hello and you kind of snap at them and maybe you're snippy on the phone all day. So that quick feeling that happened when you saw him give you the finger has turned into something that might just totally ruin your day. And that's not what we want. So let's talk about how to process our emotions at the feeling stage. This comes from the Conscious Leadership Group led by Jim Dethmer. It's a really powerful way to process these feelings so that you don't become reactive. We want to be responsive to our feelings, not reactive. Reactivity implies that we're not really in control and we're just being led down this domino path of, well, now I feel this, now I feel this. So the 5 steps are first naming the feeling, then identifying where it's showing up in your body, describing the sensation, connecting to it energetically, and then identifying the wisdom of it. What is it teaching you? What should you be doing as an outcome from it? So let's run through those 5 things. The first step is literally just naming the feeling. And this is actually a lot more difficult than you might think. If you've ever just been in your feels and been noticing you're feeling a certain way, did you stop to really get clear on why you're feeling that way? I was talking to someone the other day who was saying she was having an emotional response that was leading her down into a healthy habit. And I was asking, well, what's the emotion? And she just kept saying, well, it's an emotional. I feel emotional. And she was having trouble really getting clear. If we don't know exactly what the emotion is, it's very hard to know how to diagnose it and how to clear it. So let's start with an example of, let's see, I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she's really feeling stressed. She's feeling super stressed about a class at school. So the feeling is stress. Let's see where we can find that one. Stressed is under the bad feeling category. So you notice in the middle, these are the broad emotions. So you can start in the middle to kind of give you a clue. She was feeling bad, feeling stressed. And then when I asked her more about it, she was feeling overwhelmed. She has a lot to do. She feels like there's nothing she can do to really catch up with it. So the feeling was overwhelmed. So step one is naming it. Step two is let's identify where it is in the body. She's been feeling very run down. She feels tired all the time. Feelings are energy. They show up in your body. If you're not sure what your feeling is, look for the clue for where it's manifesting in your body. These more negative emotions, anger, all that, they show up usually in your head, the back of your head, your jaw, your neck, the back of your shoulders. All of those tend to store those anger feelings. The sadder feelings tend to show up more in your eyes, your throat, your higher up chest. Joy you feel right in your upper belly. So right around right here, that's kind of our joyful feeling. And then right below that in your belly is fear. So this is, I think, why I enjoy roller coasters so much, because the joy and fear feelings are so close to each other and you don't really know which is which, and they're happening so fast. And then sexual feelings happen more down in your core, down in your bottom, in your groin. And when I'm talking about sexual feelings, this is creativity. This is energy. This is something being creative. It could be a new relationship starting. It could be a new business starting. So these sexual feelings tend to be more the creativity, something new. And that might also be why a lot of times when you see artists, they seem to have like a lot more of this sexual energy, because that creativity is really that sexuality. All right, so we've identified where the feeling is. For her, she's just been feeling super tight. She has been feeling a lot of stress in her neck and back. So we identified that this stress was showing up in these anger zones with her. Step number 3 is describing how the sensation makes you feel. Let's try to use ING words for this. We want to really feel how it is. She was feeling like a clenching. She was feeling a let's see, what else were we talking about? Definitely a clenching in her jaw. She was feeling just a really big tightness. She was feeling like she couldn't quite move. She was walking around really, really stiff. So a stiffening. And then step number 4 is connecting energetically to the movement. And this is a really interesting part. And when I first started doing this, it kind of worked really well for me, because I already feel like I do a lot physically, energetically with my feelings. I'm the type of person who, when I'm eating something delicious, I'm like, oh yes. Or if I get hurt, it's like, no. So when we want to connect energetically, there might be a sound or a movement or something with your body that expresses how this feeling is making you feel. With my daughter, she was really having trouble connecting to it. And so I just was like, hey, can I give you a hug? And I gave her a big hug. And at first she was really stiff. And then she just kind of melted, and, her eyes got a little bit wet. So like the energy for her might've just been like having that hug. I know I've had some times in my life with my kids where we've just been going through a rough time as a family, and I was in the car and I noticed that everything seemed to be really heavy, and I suggested, hey, let's just do scream break. And so we do scream breaks in my family every now and then. When I notice that things are just feeling tight and tense, I'll be like, hey, scream break, and we'll all just scream at the top of our lungs. And after about 5, 10, 15 seconds, the energy is out, the feeling is out, and we're all laughing and smiling. Similarly, on the other side, but my family, we love to do hug breaks. So if someone's really feeling super sad and we're noticing that, someone will just shout out hug break, and we'll all just give each other hugs and just really feel that feeling and let it process. So identify for you, what does your body want to do? Does the emotion make you want to wiggle? Does it make you want to yell? Does it make you want to hit something? Put your energy into it. Step number 5 of clearing this emotion. And remember, This whole process is meant to take place in about 90 seconds. Step number 5 is learning the wisdom from the emotion. And depending on the type of emotion, you're going to learn something different. So let me come back to this screen. All right. So sad emotions usually are teaching us that something needs to be let go of or mourned. If there's a sadness, ask yourself, if your emotion is in that category, is there something that you need to let go of, or is there something that you haven't properly mourned yet? Because until you do, that sadness is going to stay in your body. Anger. My daughter's feeling was in the anger category. What is no longer serving you or others? What needs to be stopped, changed, or ended? And we talked about it. And we realized that her desire to get an A no matter what was no longer serving her. And she wanted to reassess what her goals were with this class. And she just wanted to do her best. And so she's been letting go of this idea that for her to be good, she has to get all A's. And we've just been having this conversation again and again that like, hey, your best is the best. Fears are what needs to be known. There's been a few times in my life where I was at the precipice of a major life change and there was a ton of fear. And the process that I needed to do was just literally write out every single one of the questions that I had unknown feelings about, and then go through and start researching or asking friends and just doing my research. Fear emotions are always based on something you do not know, but you can ask people, you can, and not that you can find all the answers to these, but you probably just need to do some research if there's fear emotions. Joy. Is there something that needs to be celebrated? Maybe you just want some big award and you're anxious and you don't really want to tell anyone because you feel like it might be bragging. Maybe it's okay. Call up your mom, put a post on Facebook, give yourself a shout out, like let that out. It's okay to celebrate something in your life. That's, we don't need to have overall humility. And then finally, these sexual feelings, what needs to be creative? Is there something attractive to you? Do you want to start something new? Maybe it's a really good time to put out a post to like rally people to do something. Maybe it's a good time to call someone up that you've been wanting to get to be better friends with. So these sexual feelings are the creation time. All right, so these are the 5 steps for processing emotions. And if you can be mindful about noticing these feelings right at the start, and going through these 5 steps, the emotion clears. And again, if you don't do this, the emotion stays trapped in your body and it can bleed into other things. Like with my daughter, she just feels stressed about everything now. Even though the only thing stressful is this math class, she hasn't been able to really clear this emotion and it keeps coming back because she keeps putting her mind back into it. So I've been practicing with her how to clear this. So this takes you from being reactive to your feelings, which is kind of out of your control, to responsive to your feelings, where you get to notice, you get to see what's going on, and you get to move forward. Now, another really big benefit of being able to name and process your emotions is recognizing that there are some emotions that do absolutely trigger addictive tendencies. I'm going to go through what those are right now so that you can notice if there's some emotions that have been really keeping you back from creating healthier habits. So the acronym to remember is BLASTED, B-L-A-S-T-E-D. The emotions are bored, lonely, angry, stressed, tired, excited, and depressed. These 7 emotions 100% will trigger your brain into thinking it's time to celebrate or it's time to soothe. Like, let's do the fastest, easiest thing to feel better. And when you get that trigger, you might reach for another bottle of alcohol when you've already had too much. You might reach for a smoke because it's a quick way to calm yourself down. You might reach for an extra cookie. You might go crawl back into bed. I'll just share my personal story with this. I used to be a binge eater for years and years, and I didn't really want to think about it. I was in a reactive state. I hadn't really done any personal work on myself and wasn't clued into the emotions behind it. I just thought, oh, I guess I do this thing. It's too bad. I guess this is just how I am. And it was a big secret and I felt horrible about it. And my weight was yo-yoing all over the place and I felt terrible. So in this situation, I'm going to ask myself, what was the habit of disease? It was my binge eating. I would literally start eating after my family went to sleep and eat for hours and hours and hours. And then when the sun came up, I would sneak back into bed and eat healthy all the next day to make up for it, but then start binging again at night. So which of these emotions were triggering my binging? 100% I was tired. I was not getting enough sleep because I was staying up all night eating. So fatigue was a major one for me. I was also depressed because I felt like a failure. I felt like the fact that I was doing this with food meant that I had no self-control. I really didn't like myself with that. So I was tired. I was depressed. I was bored. It was late at night. There was nothing else to do. I was already feeling tired and depressed, and there I was bored as well. So I had actually multiple of these emotions stacking on top of itself. So it triggered addictive behavior big time in me. Now, once I learned about the blasted emotions, I was able to stop and pull back and look at very objectively my binge eating habit and ask myself these questions. And when I realized it was mainly triggered by fatigue, it was so lovely to just realize, what if I just went to bed? And I had never asked myself this question before. I always prided myself on being able to stay up and be able to function. But I just started going to sleep earlier. And when my brain was more rested, I was able to control it more. And when I was started to be able to control it more, I felt less depressed. And when I felt less depressed, I was able to get more done with my day. But it took me being mindful of these emotions. It wasn't that I had low self-control. It wasn't that I was an addict. It's that I was in a complete blasted mentality. And when I was in a blasted mentality, all of my poor negative addictive behaviors would come out because my brain just didn't have a chance. So if you have a habit that you feel like you've been cycling in that's addictive or triggering, identify which of these emotions is going on. And then this last question is really important. What other actions can help process this emotion? I remember one night I was up in the middle of a binge and I had a bag of Fritos right there on my desk and I was reaching my hand in and eating and eating and eating. And I had just recently learned about all of this and I put my hand in the bag. And as my hand went in, I asked myself, how many of these do I need to eat to make this stressed feeling go away? And I just asked that question and I realized, oh, there is literally no amount of Fritos I can eat that will make me feel less stressed. I took my hand out of the bag, I closed it up, I brought it to the kitchen, and I went to bed. And it was just that small moment of mindfulness, but I began practicing these small moments more and more and more, getting more clued into exactly where I was emotionally. And eventually, I now have a habit of noticing and processing emotions in a much faster way. So I would really encourage you this week to get very clear on what you're feeling. If you notice a feeling in your body, put your hand on the place, name it, make whatever motion you need to make to process the feeling and see what you need to learn from it. Take these feelings, learn in the moment. Don't let them turn into emotions or moods. Don't let them suck all your energy away from what you want to be doing during the day. And if you have a second, print out the worksheet that's linked here. It's got a few more questions and exercises, and this is a really handy wheel that you can print out to have with that as well. And I hope this helps. I hope as you get more mindful about what's actually happening, then you're able to have greater emotional peace, because these emotions and these moods that we get stuck in, they suck your energy out from doing the rest of your life. So anyway, I hope you're doing well. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And I do offer private coaching as well. So if you need anything, connect with me. I'd love to have a conversation and see if there's anything I can do to help you more. All right, thanks.